More than 100 students at the University of Northampton signed up for what's called sugar daddy dating to help fund their tuition fees last year, according to an online dating website. In the last year, they say they've had 117 students from the university register with seekingarrangement.com. It's an American-based internet dating website which advertises itself as a way for students to pay their way through university by being paired up with older, wealthy members of the opposite sex. Here's just a little of their online advertisement.
Do college bills have you in more debt than you can handle? While working full-time to fund your education has you sick and tired of folding clothes you can't even afford to buy. And those deadbeats you've been dating, they aren't any help. The solution to all of your problems has arrived. SeekingArrangement.com is introducing a new and innovative plan for college sugar babies that is sweeping the nation. The Sugar Daddy. Our financial aid plan.
Yeah, and so it goes on. Pretty dreadful advertisement, actually, isn't it? But there it is. That's what you can hear. And earlier we heard from Angela Bermodo from the website, talking to BBC Radio Northampton from her base in Las Vegas. She says she's aware that some people may think that it's an easy way for an older man to have relations with a younger woman. But she says that's not the case.
I can understand how people would judge that because they're not familiar with it. At least for a number of people, they're not. However, this is a dating website, like any other dating website. Sex is not part of the agreement of ever getting into a relationship or going on a date. I mean, whenever we get into relationships, certainly the men in the relationship aspire to eventually work their way up to a sexual relationship. However, it's never part of the agreement.
We also heard from Clara, a student from the East Midlands who uses the service. She says rather than being paid, the men she meets buy her gifts that saves her money.
The majority are 40 plus businessmen. They buy me things that otherwise I'd have to buy myself, which would be a stretch for a student budget, like perfume, and I've been known to get makeup, things that can be really hard to buy.
And Angela Bermodo from the website says rising costs and tuition fees for students have led to an increase in sign-ups to the website from the UK.
Honestly, in regards to students signing up, in the past, I think since 2012, we saw a sharp increase in students signing up. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of universities were allowed to charge new minimums, which, it's hard for students especially students who are already enrolled, to sort of adjust to those changes. So a lot of them do have to look at other means of being able to, like you heard Cara, not only pay for their fees, but also pay for other things that they should be able to pay for, like rent, food, other items that they may need. So that's why they're coming to the site. And, a lot of people out there will just say, well, why don't they just get a job? I don't know if they remember what it's like being at uni, but it's really difficult in order to focus on your studies while taking on a full-time or part-time job.
We did approach the University of Northampton to join us and comment on the programme, but a spokesperson for the university said they were aware of the site and simply pointed us to the direction of the student finance advice on their website. Well, Martin Lord is from the Citizens Advice Bureau in Northampton. Martin, what do you make of this?
Well, parents with daughters at university must be shuddering when they hear of it. It does highlight, doesn't it, that many students have financial difficulties. And of course, not all students are your sort of classic school leavers. Many of them have caring responsibilities. They may be parents themselves, albeit young. And it does highlight that many students do have difficulties at university. Putting aside the sort of perhaps more salacious elements of the story, in terms of this website, we know that many students struggle. We know that they're often very vulnerable to being ripped off in the private rented housing sector, also in employment. And we would always encourage people to take advice rather than turning to this kind of solution as it's described.
Do many students turn to you at the Citizens Advice Bureau for advice and assistance?
They do. We have a specific specific service that we offer in partnership with the university's own, Northampton University's own financial guidance team. It's an award-winning service, actually, or partnership, where students presenting for advice from the financial guidance team, often actually in respect to applying for discretionary grants to support them through their studies, can then take advice. And although it's generally the case that students nowadays can't claim benefits, those that have caring responsibilities, perhaps lone parents or disabilities, can, and it's often a real opportunity to maximise their income to help them to get through university, to sustain their studies, and to be successful in the end, to take advice from the CAB.
We heard Clara say that in her experience she hasn't had her tuition fees paid, but she has had things paid for and bought for her that she otherwise wouldn't be able to afford, which makes being a student that much easier to get by: clothes and food and perfume. What's wrong with that?
Well, it's down to individuals, I guess, to make a sort of individual decision about whether that's the sort of relationship they want to enter into. I guess there's a market for it. As I said at the beginning, parents must perhaps shudder. I don't think it perhaps does women in that situation much good. It's a decision they've got to make themselves, but certainly before being pushed to go down this route, which many women might feel they need to, we would always advise people to take advice about whether or not there's other ways of supplementing their income in a sustainable way so that they can complete their studies successfully.
Stay with us if you would, Martin. I'm just going to read a statement from the National Union of Students that they've sent us. It says, the statistics appear to be based on registration figures rather than active membership. For instance, the site states that they offer free membership to students who register with their school address, thereby providing detailed statistics on registration of interest, but it's not showing those who actually participate in the service. Students face many hardships, from tuition fees to a high cost of living. We would be concerned if any student felt pressured into exchanging sex for cash, and would advise students to visit nus.org.uk for help with any financial worries, as we have a wide and in-depth information section on student finance. Students should remember that their students' union should be their first port of call on campus for any help or advice. So could universities do more to address this? We asked Kate Gregory, a qualified counsellor in Northampton, what she made of this site. This was her response, read here by a BBC Radio Northampton reporter.
Attending university, particularly for the first time, can be extremely stressful for young people, and it's reported that 20% of all university students suffer mental health problems and 12% have suicidal thoughts. Now, the triggers of these difficulties can vary from being away from home for the first time to the pressure of course deadlines and managing finances. And these young adults are often extremely vulnerable, and being enticed by websites such as Sugar Daddy is both unfair and morally wrong. The effect on the young women can be devastating, as they can find themselves in situations that are out of their control. Decisions made at this time of their lives, particularly as they may not be fully aware of the consequences of being involved in such a dating website, can have a long-lasting detrimental effect upon young people's mental health. I find it outrageous that these companies are targeting young people in this way, and it's nothing short of exploitation.
So, Martin Lord, is it exploitation, or is it just a part of students who have gone to university, they're presumably among the brighter members of society, not being able to use their judgment better as to sign up to these things?
Well, they may be brighter in academic terms. I think most people would perhaps understand or relate to the fact that, you know, as one gets older, one acquires more good judgment, more common sense, and in that respect, the counsellor perspective you just played there actually does back up common sense, which is that it does sound exploitative, a bit unsavoury. The more you think about it, the worse it gets, actually. And as I said right at the beginning, it's really for students to explore all options to put their finances on a better footing before being enticed into this sort of arrangement.
Is there anything that you at Citizens Advice Bureau can do about this, other than offer that sort of advice?
What you mean about the website itself?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Not really. I think there may be child protection issues potentially, which social services departments might take a view on. There's advertising standards, things like that.
But child protection wouldn't come into effect if they're over 18, and the website says they have to be.
In most cases, no, and I think it's unlikely from a law enforcement perspective that anything can be done about the website. It's there, and obviously we're unfortunately giving it a bit of publicity this morning. All I would really say, as I said, is if people are having financial difficulties, they really should seek advice before being enticed into this kind of arrangement.
Martin, thank you very much indeed for your time. Martin Lord from the Citizens Advice Bureau in Northamptonshire.